I am Leonard Delvo. I signed contracts with gold pens, walked through doors that opened for me without a knock, and ruled rooms with just my presence. Now, I beg for spare change with the same hands that once signed million-dollar deals. No one remembers the king when the crown falls. They only see the man in rags, not the war behind his eyes. This isn't just a fall from graces, it's the brutal truth of what power hides. And out here, in the streets, there are no masks, only mirrors.
The funny thing about power is that you don't realize you're losing it until it's already gone. I had spent my whole life trying to prove I deserved the Delvo name, but desperation is dangerous. It makes you take risks, it makes you blind, and in the end, one mistake was all it took. Adrian Vega slid a folder across the table. A high-stakes investment, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This will put you ahead of your father, he said. You'd finally be the one calling the shots. I should have hesitated, but I was too far gone. I needed to win, so I shook his hand. And just like that, I was in. A week later, my mother, Eleanor, came to see me. There's something off about this deal, Leo, she said. I can feel it. I forced a smile. You're worrying for nothing, Mother. But deep down, a part of me wondered, was she right? At first, everything went perfectly. The numbers skyrocketed. The press called me a financial genius. Even my father looked at me with something close to approval. Maybe you're finally ready, he muttered. I let myself believe it. I had won. Then, the first sign of trouble. A small company involved in the investment suddenly collapsed. Just a minor loss, Adrian assured me. Nothing to worry about. But I had a bad feeling, and for the first time, I wondered, had I been played? The numbers started to slip. Slowly at first. Then, all at once. Millions were disappearing. The board was getting nervous. The media started asking questions. And then, the government launched an investigation. I confronted Adrian. You told me this was solid. He just smiled. You should have read the fine print. That's when I knew I had been set up. And the worst part, I had no way out. When my father found out, he was silent for a long time. Then he stood up, walked toward me, and said in a voice colder than I'd ever heard, "You are not my son." The words hit harder than any punch ever could. I tried to recover the losses. I begged investors. I made desperate deals. But the damage was done. No one trusted a Delvo anymore. One morning, I walked into the boardroom and found my Uncle Victor sitting at my father's desk. Effective immediately, Victor announced. Leonard Delvo is being removed from all business operations. I looked at my father. He didn't say a word. He just turned his back. I had lost everything. That night, I sat in my car outside the mansion. My home. My kingdom. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts. There was no one to call. I had spent my life chasing power. And now I had nothing left. After losing the company, I turned to the only person I had left, Adrian Vega. I need help, I admitted. I need a way to fix this. Adrian smirked. Of course, Leo. I've got you. I should have known better. Adrian introduced me to a powerful investor man with deep pockets and even deeper secrets. This is your way back, Adrian promised. All you have to do is sign. I signed, and that was the moment I sealed my fate. A week later, I got a call. The funds are gone, the investor said. You stole from me. I froze. What? That's not possible. The investor laughed coldly. Your partner withdrew everything. Adrian, he had been planning this from the start. I stormed into Adrian's penthouse. You set me up. He didn't even flinch. You made it too easy. I lunged at him, but his security was faster. They threw me to the ground like I was nothing. And then, the final blow. You think I was ever your friend? Adrian whispered, kneeling beside me. You were just a stepping stone. I had no choice. I went back to my father. I sat across from him in his office, my heart pounding. "Give me one more chance," I said. "I can fix this." He didn't even look at me. "You're not my problem anymore." My own father cut me off. Falling from power isn't like jumping off a cliff. It's like drowning slow, painful, and at some point, you stop fighting. One day, I was Leonard Delvaux the heir, the businessman, the future king. The next, I was nothing more than a name in a scandal. A knock on my door. A man in a suit. "You've been served." I skimmed the papers of lawsuit. Fraud. Embezzlement. The government was coming for me. And they weren't the only ones. I tried to move what money I had left, but my accounts were locked. A call to the bank confirmed my worst fear. "Due to the pending investigation, your assets are currently frozen." I had money. I just couldn't touch it. And in a world like mine, money was survival. I called my father. No answer. I called old business partners. They refused to meet. Even my lawyer, the man who had represented our family for years, said, "Leo, you're toxic right now. No one will risk standing beside you." I was alone. My face was on every news channel. Former Delvaux heir accused of financial crimes. Leonard Delvaux, fraud or misfortune. Once a billionaire, now a scandal. I turned off the television. I couldn't stand to watch myself burn. Desperate, I made one last move. A man named Felix Moreau promised me a way out. A high-return deal, off the books. "This will clear your name, Leo. One last investment." I transferred everything I had left. And then, Felix disappeared. The next day, I walked into my penthouse. The furniture was gone. The art was missing. The walls were stripped bare. The bank had seized my assets. I had nowhere left to go. At midnight, there was a loud banging. The door burst open. Cops, warrants, handcuffs. "Leonard Delvaux, you are under arrest for wire fraud and conspiracy." I didn't resist. I didn't speak. I just let them take me. The walls smelled of sweat and regret. The floor was cold. The air was heavy. I sat on the bench, staring at my hands. Once, these hands signed billion-dollar deals. Now, they were shackled. My lawyer fought. The evidence was weak. The charges dropped. But the damage was done. The world saw me in handcuffs, and in my world, perception was everything. I stood outside the courthouse, the weight of everything crushing me. No home, no money, no power. I reached for my phone, but I had no one left to call. I took one last look at the skyline I once ruled. Then, I walked away. From the city, from my past, from Leonard Delvaux. I had lost everything, and now, the real struggle was about to begin. The next morning, the Delvaux family officially disowned me. My name was erased from the company records. My accounts were frozen. My properties were seized. Everything I had ever built was gone. I was no longer Leonard Delvaux. I was nothing. I called every contact I had, every so-called friend. No one picked up. The doors of power had slammed shut.
I didn't know when I fell asleep.
Woke up. I was lying on the pavement. The same streets I used to drive past in luxury cars. The same streets I never thought I'd have to walk. I had no money, no power, no name. And as I sat there, the words from long ago echoed in my head. Not all kings die in palaces. Some wake up in the streets. I thought I could still win. Even after everything was taken from my name, my fortune, my dignity, I believed I could fight my way back. But the truth? The world doesn't let men like me recover. Once you've fallen, they don't just let you stand up again. They make sure you stay down. I walked into a corporate office in the same suit I had worn to million-dollar meetings. The receptionist looked at me confused. "Are you lost, sir?" I shook my head. "I have an interview." 30 minutes later, I walked out with nothing. No one wanted to hire a man whose face had been plastered all over the news for fraud. Even if I had money, I needed a place to live. I found a cheap apartment in the outskirts of the city. The landlord glanced at my ID and frowned. I don't rent to criminals. I wasn't even convicted. But in this world, guilt doesn't need a trial, it just needs a headline. I needed just one investor, one person who believed in me. I went to old contacts, past business partners. I pitched ideas, strategies. I begged, but they all gave me the same look, fear, disgust. One of them finally said it, "Leo, you're poison. No one will touch you." I tried to take out a loan. Denied. I tried to open a new account. Blocked. My name wasn't just worthless, it was dangerous. I hadn't spoken to my mother since I lost everything. But that night I sat in a cheap motel room staring at the ceiling and called her. She picked up. Silence. "Mom," I whispered, "I need help." I waited. Then I heard it, the softest sound of crying. And then the line went dead. The next morning, I saw the headline. Eleanor Delvaux restructures, family trust excludes Leonard Delvaux. Even my own mother had erased me. When you have nothing, you start looking for money in places you never imagined. One night, I found myself in a dirty warehouse on the edge of town. Men in expensive suits, but no cameras, no contract. A man placed a suitcase full of cash in front of me. A job offer. "You do this," he said, "and you'll have a way back in." I was supposed to deliver a package, nothing more. But the second I got to the meeting point, I knew it was a setup. Flashing lights, police sirens. And suddenly, I was running. Running like my life depended on it. I don't know how long I ran, but when I stopped, I was in a part of the city I had never seen before. I sat down on the sidewalk, gasping for air, shaking, my expensive shoes covered in filth. That's when I saw him, a homeless man, watching me from the alley. "You new here?" he asked. I didn't answer. He nodded. "Yeah, you got the look." I had no idea what he meant, but I would soon. I spent that night in an abandoned parking lot. No money, no food, no friends. For the first time in my life, I was truly nothing. And that's when I finally understood. This wasn't rock bottom. It was just the beginning.
The city moves fast, but the street moves slower and colder. When the lights go out and the world retreats behind locked doors and warm beds, another world wakes up home of cardboard shelters, whispered fears, and the desperate hunger that's not just for food, but for dignity. Leo used to dine beneath chandeliers. Now he fights sleep under streetlights, with one eye open and his back to the wall. Tonight, it's not just about surviving the cold, it's about surviving the people who prey on the forgotten. What happens when a man who once had everything learns the rules of those who have nothing? What happened when you find out that the street is full of both the young and old, boys and girls? This is a different world on its own. Can I survive this? This is just the beginning of my journey.